got pulled over the other day. I was dropping my girls off and at a tennis lesson and then had to get back home. And
you had to hurry, I guess.
Well, I wasn't necessarily in a hurry, but I just pulled out onto the street, and apparently I didn't come to a complete stop because I pulled out right in front of a police officer. And he pulled me right over, and I made the first turn I could, which was into a school parking lot. But I turned in the wrong way in the bus route. It was in the evening, so nobody is there. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going the wrong way on this parking lot street.
I've done two things
I'm sure
wrong
he
now.
thought I must have been
tipsy.
Something. I don't know. And anyway, he comes over and he's like, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm not sure.
Oh my goodness.
And he said, well, you didn't come to a complete stop back there. And I was like, trying to think, what do I say? Because you're probably right, but I don't want a ticket. And he says, I need to see your license and registration. And so as I get him out, I'm thinking, and I give him my things, and I say, I feel like I stopped.
Oh my goodness.
That was the best I could do without lying. And so he goes back, and while he's sitting there looking at my information, a second police car pulls up behind me.
So he must have found something when they looked up your information.
What could he find?
What have you done?
I don't know. But there's two guys there, and he comes back to my window, and the other police officer walks up on the other side.
Can I pause and interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
Before they get out and come up on either side, you did snap a quick picture and text me.
I did of my, side mirror. Like, I've got a double stop here. What did I do? Anyway, they come over and I'm
just laughing that you were sitting there with two cop cars behind you, which is a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
Snapping pictures of them.
Well,
okay,
you got to take advantage of the opportunity. Anyway, he comes back and he gives me my things back, and he's like, I'm just going to let you off with a warning today, but I did check the footage just to give you the benefit of the doubt, and you did not come to a complete stop. And I was just like, oh my goodness, well, thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. He checked the footage.
Yeah.
From his camera on his car.
But then I pulled out of the parking lot the wrong way, and because it was all I could do. I had to go the wrong way. Anyway, I pull out and I drive home, and he followed me all the way home.
Why?
I don't know. It's like 3 blocks to my house, but he just followed me down the road right to my house.
I wonder why. That's creepy. Like he's like, I gave her one free pass, but if she blows it again,
it's over.
It's over.
Handcuffs.
Handcuffs.
Blinkers, signaling, checking shoulders, mirrors the whole way home. Just like, okay, here I am. I made it safe.
Oh my goodness. I hope that when this episode airs that he texts in because he goes to the church.
Maybe.
He's just like, actually, I was following you to see where my pastor lived or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
Text Life in Motion to 23101 and let us know, officer.
Hilarious. Okay, well, anyway, that was a relief because I did not want to spend my money on a ticket.
I wouldn't either. What do you want to spend your money on? First, we should introduce ourselves.
We should. Oh, yeah. I'm Heather. This is my best friend, Jamie. This is the podcast Life in Motion, where we talk about life, all the ups and downs, everything in between, even the stuff we're not supposed to talk about. So let's get started.
Last night, as I tucked Eleanor in bed, she said something. She wanted to talk. She's a lot like me. She wanted to talk rather than go to bed. And she said, what should we talk about? And I said, life. And I started doing the intro. And she's like, Mom, don't do it. We could talk about everything in between, even the things we're not supposed to talk about, Eleanor. Anyway, we didn't talk. She went to bed.
Yeah.
So what should we talk about today? We've been going on this journey now for a couple of months, I think.
Yeah.
7 weeks. 8 weeks. What do we want to focus in on? Because I've done a lot of growing.
You've done a lot of growing. I still have a lot more growing to do. I have made an appointment to see.
Are you telling the truth right now?
I am telling the truth right now.
Are you massaging the truth like you did to the police
No,
officer?
this is the absolute truth.
Okay.
I have an appointment. It's for a month out.
Yeah, because people are busy.
But I'm on their wait list if somebody cancels. So I can even possibly get a call today
To go to counseling?
to go to counseling. Just to talk about, when I look at that,
Here, let's practice. Hold on. So what brings you in today, Heather?
I'm not sure. I just,
Okay. That's what I was wondering. I was wondering what you were going to go for.
I don't know. That's the thing is when I look at that body scan and
Yeah.
it talks about all this unhealth in my emotions, when I really sit and think about, that's one thing about my personality type is I really like to avoid the uncomfortable, bad feelings.
Sure.
And so I think that's part of why I drag my feet when it's time to go talk to somebody professionally about all
Yeah.
my quirks and
Are you
bad
nervous?
habits. Am I? Not yet.
Yeah, sure.
Which I guess underlying, I'm kind of thinking like, oh my gosh, what if they discover that I have a hidden secret that I've,
I don't even know I'm doing it.
yeah,
Whatever.
And I'm going to find out I'm not as nice a person as I thought I was.
Oh my goodness.
Or,
I don't think you're going to learn you're not as nice as you thought you were, because you are very nice. But I
But-
am interested to see what they tap into.
yeah. And that I'm going to, I don't know.
Are you going to talk to someone that specializes in emotional health, since that's what came out of the body scan?
I don't know. You know what? I'm going to call a couple of different people actually, just because what if I don't like this person or what if I need something different?
That is so interesting. You better pray about it.
I should.
You better pray about it. I say that because when episode 1 of this season aired, I got a text from a friend that I've known forever. And she said, hey, I was listening to the podcast. Who do you go to counseling? Who's your counselor? Who do you go to? And I shared who I went with, what I liked about who I'm seeing right now, and why in this season I think she's so good for me. And I said, I have previously gone to this person. Now I'm going to this person. And she said, oh yeah, I've been to her. I don't like her. And I was like, well, I have some suggestions. Then if you don't like this personality, why don't you try this person? Or I was just being helpful. And then the more we texted back and forth, she said, well, you confirmed what I already feel like the Lord is speaking to my heart. And I was like, what's that? And she said, go back to the person I don't like, because what I actually need is to hear from somebody that views life differently than I do. Because when I have been before to a counselor that seems to see life the way that I do, I wasn't changing. I was like, oh. So anyway, you better pray about it, because you may not like them and they might be right for you. So you say you don't know why you're going, but something about this season of us on this journey together and you getting that full body scan, something's going on inside of you.
Yeah.
So what might it be?
Well, it's what I don't remember what episode we talked about it, but reconciling logically what I know and
Right.
and why my feelings of resentment creep up.
Sure.
Like, what do I need to do to get those in line with each other, and even fostering better communication skills with my husband and my kids, some of my kids who speak a different language than me,
Right.
so that I'm not just feel like I'm frustrated because my message isn't getting across, or they're frustrated because they're not feeling heard, or whatever it might be. So it's part of it is to increase my communication skills. Part of it is to reconcile the emotions that I have with reality. And
That's interesting. I read somewhere, Heather, that the number one reason, or the most common reason people go to counseling, is a breakdown in communication. And then what comes out of it is, what's your part to play? Where do you need to have better boundaries because the other person is also at fault? Like, not to throw Whit under the bus, but he probably I'm not giving you a green light to have bitterness and resentment in your heart by any stretch of the imagination. But there is something he's doing that's triggering that, and he may have some growth. You may have some growth, and learning how to communicate and navigate both sides of that could be helpful.
yeah, well, and
I say that, but I went to counseling for Cooper and I, and it was all me. So
it was all you. So it might be all me. Who knows? Or maybe I'll go to a counselor and they'll say,
We're
we
gonna need to
really
bring
need you.
Whit in."
Yeah. And they'll say, thank you.
Oh my goodness.
But it is, it's for me. This is my go-to. I get upset about something and I just stew on it for a
Yeah.
while until it becomes this festering, and then maybe I'll explode, or maybe
Yeah.
I'll find a way to say it and then let it go, but then it starts creeping back up again.
I wonder if you'll start sleeping better
Maybe.
when you go to counseling, because you have told me before that sometimes like you'll wake up in the night and can't go back to sleep, and you'll start replaying a conversation over and over where I have my own host of issues. We all know that.
Right.
That's not one of them. I can sleep through the night like a champ. And so, but it's interesting to me because I'm just like, really? You wake up replaying a conversation?
Yeah.
I sometimes am too easy on myself, so I give myself a free pass and I've moved on. Which, by the way, last week we talked about the friend of mine who had texted, wanted to get together, wanted to apologize for some things or whatever, and I just set up a boundary and was like, I can't do it. I talked to her yesterday, just kind of said in passing, hey, I've been growing. I'm feeling good right now. If you still want to talk, I'm open to it. Like if you've moved on, I'm totally good. I needed to create a boundary for some healthy space for me. And I no longer need that boundary, and I don't want it to turn into a brick wall that's keeping you out if you want to talk. And it would just ended up evolving into the conversation right then and right there. And so fascinating as I'm viewing things through the lens of what I'm learning in counseling, and then hearing what she was saying. Like, it sounds like her ego response, where I think, again, I don't know, but I think yours might be resentment or whatever. Hers, or stuffing emotions, or avoidance, or whatever yours is. We know mine's anger. Hers is shame. And so I was just talking to her. It was fascinating because she said, I felt like I shouldn't, because we were just texting. I felt like I shouldn't reach out again and further clarify, because she texted, can we go grab coffee or get lunch? And then, let me clarify. I just want to apologize for some things. And then I'm just like, there's nothing I can think of. Like, this seems ridiculous. I've got to put up this boundary or else I'm going to get angry. And anyway, she said, I felt like I wasn't supposed to text yet again and re-clarify, but she said, I think I used the language apologize because my knee-jerk reaction is shame to like, I was probably wrong. I'm ashamed of myself. And the whole conversation, really all it was, there was a season in life we were close. We're not right now. She misses it. And she just, out of honor and respect, I'm 10 years older than her, out of honor and respect, she just wanted to say, I remember that season, and man, it was so good. And I love you, and that's it. I'm just like, well, I probably wouldn't have thrown up a boundary to protect my heart if I just knew you were going to say you loved me. Interesting, though, our communication, our inability to communicate clearly, my knee-jerk reaction of, whatever you're going to say, I'm probably going to get angry, and I don't want to do that. I'm growing in that area, so hold on. And then her knee-jerk reaction of like, I probably communicated wrong. I should be ashamed of myself. I will apologize. Anyway, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And I think I kind of default to that too, where I take on it's not always necessarily shame, but it's,
do you take on the responsibility?
I take on the
situation?
responsibility of the situation. So if I was her and like remembering, oh, that time was so good and we were so close, and now we're not anymore, where I'm taking on the responsibility of, it's probably my fault.
That's exactly
what did I do?
She said.
What did I say? How did I hurt her? Why does she not want to be my friend anymore?
Yes, that was the recorder going on in her mind. And I was like, I just need you to know, I've never thought any of those things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm raising teenage boys going through puberty.
That's taken all
and
my
it's
time.
taken a lot of my prayer life and attention. And I'm not like, I love you. Like, draw a heart around your face. I love you.
Yeah.
I likely can't go to lunch, but I do love you.
Yeah. So
it's pretty easy.
Yeah. So it's just interesting of how many, especially in my family, how am I enabling bad behavior? because I'll take on the responsibility. That must be my fault that they're doing that. That must be my fault that Lucy has bad spending habits. And,
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Like it might, like you're not thinking where me, I'm thinking like, I wonder why God gave me a kid that's hardwired to think that way. Like, I mean, what in the world?
Yeah. So, that's things to explore in counseling of, okay, why do I take on this? Why do I approach everything like I'm the person in the wrong or whatever?
Are you,
That's not completely true. I know that, but
are
whatever.
you in it for the long haul? Like, what if you go to one appointment and said counselor says, this is great. Let's meet weekly for 6 weeks or something. Like they often say 6 or 8 weeks or something. Are you in it for the long haul?
As long as I feel like it's helpful.
Okay.
No, I would be.
I'm just curious.
I would need, like if they're giving me homework I've heard people have this homework and I don't have this homework. Pour a box of Cheerios
I
on the
asked for
floor.
that homework one week. I was just like, give me the Cheerio homework. And the counselor's like, that's not your issue. And I'm like, well, I mean, I just want you to know I'd do it.
Yeah, like that wouldn't bother me. And so I'm like, why are you making me do this? This is dumb.
We should say what that Cheerio homework is. So the idea is, I think it's typically assigned to people that have perfectionist tendencies. Mm-hmm. And so the exercise is you go to your office, you pour out an entire box of Cheerios all over the floor, and then you don't explain, you tell the housekeeping people, please don't clean this room for 3 days or whatever. You don't tell anyone why they're there. And you don't clean them up. But every time you have to get up from your desk to walk, you're crunch, 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 crunch. So there's Cheerios that are like, they're everywhere, which is messy to begin with. And then they're ground into the carpet. And then people are walking in going, like, what's going on with the Cheerios? And you're just like, oh, just
don't worry about it. So that would not bother me.
Me either. So when I was in the thick of counseling the first time around, I asked my counselor for the Cheerio exercise.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, you don't need that. I was just like, but I can do that one.
Yeah. So if they're giving me dumb homework that I'm like, whatever. Yeah, it's easy. This is dumb. This means nothing to me. I need explanations of whys. Why are you telling me not to do this? Why are,
Oh, I'm so interested to see who you land with, because I've been with a counselor that gave me homework. And now I'm currently with a counselor that won't give me any homework at all and won't even tell me if I need to come back in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you want to see me again? Whatever you think, if you feel like this is helping. I'm like, is there anything I need to focus on? I think you know. I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Well, then I'm like, I take notes when she's talking. So I was like, well, she referenced that book. So I guess I'll go read that book because she won't tell me what to do. But I'm in a different place. Like I was broken enough the first time around. I needed someone to tell me what to do and to give me some tools to get me out of a pit. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not in that same place. And it's like I still want to grow, but it's almost as if she's saying, you're going to grow at the pace that you want to grow. Take responsibility and come back and see me when you need to talk. What in the world? Mm-hmm. And then I feel brushed off. I'm like, well, I'll be back next week.
You can't shut me out.
Yeah, you can't tell me I'm not coming. I'll be here with bells on. I'll set a 2-hour appointment. I'll show you.
You've really matured.
I've really grown up this season, haven't I?
You have. Oh, my. It's like you're a different person.
Oh, my goodness. This leads me to the topic of personalities and what are we trying to accomplish when we take a Myers-Briggs test or an Enneagram test? Because some people, we were talking about this last night on a text thread, our families, but are you learning those things maybe like me, so you can go like, yeah, I am powerful. I sure am an Enneagram 8 and I like power. Or are you taking it to say like, this is my preferred style. Let me look at the areas of weakness in my preferred style and start working these out, flexing these muscles so I can be a more complete person versus just the person that threatens the counselor to go to a 2-hour session. Yeah. So I am working to strengthen my lesser muscles. They'll probably never be my preferred muscles. It makes sense why my ego is a false bravado to cover weakness. When I look at my personality and everything, I want to be in control. I want to feel powerful. So I mask weakness that's not scriptural.
Yeah.
Where I'm weak, God can be strong.
My go-to is avoidance. Just uncomfortable, avoid.
Yeah.
Bad feelings, avoid.
Yeah.
Confrontation, avoid at all costs. Let's avoid that confrontation. So when I took a recent Enneagram test, which I already had a pretty good idea of what I was, but I wanted to see, okay, because this particular one then shows like where your unhealth is and things like that, and how you're using your personality.
We can link that in the show notes again this week. We did on week 2, I believe, but go ahead.
So, but it came up, so on the Enneagram, the 9 is the peacemaker, and I came up as a 9, but only in the unhealthy areas.
Oh,
like I don't think there was one positive point in the health of a 9, but it's all because of my conflict avoidance. So every question that I answered that had something to do with conflict,
you're like, never,
no, don't want to do that. So it came up, but it's all unhealthy. So hopefully going to counseling will help me, give me tools to engage with uncomfortable feelings and conflict.
Yeah.
But also,
I'm glad that I've grown at least a little bit before you do this, because one thing that has made you a safe place for me for so long is your ability and willingness to overlook my shortcomings and just love me anyway. So if you're going to start confronting me, I feel a little nervous.
well, but I feel like for the most part, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Right. Which has been so helpful in my personal growth, but maybe we can take this friendship to a new level.
Ooh. So, that's one of the reasons for counseling is let's get rid of those unhealthy things, those ways that I'm using my personality or what I'm leaning on as a crutch of sorts to avoid. Because really, for me, this next season in my life is growth. Like I want to grow. I want to put myself in a position to live out the last 3+ decades of my life.
I was like, 3 what?
Three.
Okay.
Let's
Decades,
just say I get 3 more decades. I want to live them to the full.
I think maybe 4 decades, but say what you want.
Okay.
If I have to believe God for you. 3 decades?
That would put me at almost 80.
Okay. All right.
That's
4
fine.
decades.
But 4, that's fine.
Okay.
If I live to be 100, great. But
Hey.
I want to live, I want them to be really great, awesome, fun, wonderful
Sure.
decades.
Sure. And even where they're not fun. We talked about this last week on a trip for work where we were talking about, is your calling one that always feels good, is always fun, not necessarily. I mean, so even in the seasons over the next 4 decades, the periods of time that don't feel fun can still be fulfilling.
Yeah.
Can still be purposeful. I don't know if God is in the business of just knocking our socks off with fun. I do think he gives us fun, but I don't know if his greatest goal for each of us is just you get out there and have some fun, kids.
Well, that's the way I measure everything.
Oh,
Is it or is it not fun? And there's a lot of things that people would not consider fun that I would walk away from and say, oh yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, like serving and things.
Yeah.
Yeah, like cleaning up after somebody's party or whatever.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Okay.
So we have both now said that we are either in or pursuing counseling. And I can just imagine that there's people listening saying, easy for you, I could never afford that. So let's talk about that for a minute. I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. Number one, there's all kinds of resources. You were mentioning there may be online counseling where you could, do it virtually from home, and it's relatively inexpensive. I would say don't let finances hold you back. And this is what I mean by that. A lot of counseling places have a sliding scale.
Yeah,
if
they
you
do.
can show proof of income, and if you can't afford it, they're going to give you a lesser rate and things like that. I often find it interesting that people, not everyone, because some people legitimately would need some financial assistance to make it happen. And I think there are those resources available. But a lot of people drive through Starbucks once a day and grab a $7 coffee and eat out at lunch instead of making a sandwich, because a loaf of bread and lunch meat could, for the same price of one fast food meal, you could eat a sandwich for 5 days. Like, how much do you want to grow? I mean, where are you willing to cut in order to really focus on this? I was at my functional medicine doctor yesterday. I had a follow-up, which, good news, for the first time in the history of lab work that I've done, my labs are changing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Some of my deficiencies in different vitamins and minerals and things that point to depression are coming up to normal levels.
Oh, good.
I mean, I am killing it. But she said to me something yesterday, which I kind of sat back, because she said, I'm really proud of you. If there weren't HIPAA laws, I would make you the poster child of like really doing this. It's not that expensive, but it does take commitment. I go, what? And I go, I think this is wildly expensive.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, it depends if you're willing to change where you spend resources. She's like, most people, if they are desperate enough, can afford it.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I just really sat back, because I've been a little hesitant sometimes when people reach out to me and say, who's your functional medical doctor? And I always say, it's pretty expensive. Like, here it is, but it's pretty expensive. And I just want to put that out there, so you're not surprised. I'm like making apologies for her. And she just very boldly said, it depends how you want to prioritize your life. And I didn't know this, but she alluded to the fact that she was a DO first, and she got into functional medicine after some health issues of her own. And she just said, it's amazing when you really want it, what you can afford. Anyway, so I would just say.
Well, and I would even say you're paying for it one way or another. Like, so I had, on the body scan, there's all these little markers for pre-something. And so it's not that I'm diagnosed, I'll say, with
I had 3 pre-cancer markers on mine.
I did too.
Okay,
but, so, or you're something in your medical work, whether it's traditional or non-traditional, comes up, you're pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
Well, you have a choice then and there to change the way that you eat and start eating healthier food, maybe spending more money on groceries, cutting out whatever, so that you can turn that around, or you can pay for it later by continuing on the path that you're on, and then you start paying for insulin and testing and all of that goes along with it. That's expensive. If you've ever looked around a drugstore and looked at how much those little sticks cost.
I haven't, but it sounds like you have.
I have. I've noticed it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Sure.
'Cause people pay for this every month, hundreds of dollars on diabetic supplies.
Oh, man.
And I just am using diabetes as an example. I know that there's some people that are born with it. Not everybody's being irresponsible.
Sure, absolutely.
So please, I'm not condemning any diabetic. I'm just saying
there's a lot of things all tied together.
Yeah.
Anyway, whether you need to go to a functional medical doctor, you need to go to counseling, you need to, your church may have counseling for free. I think sometimes a first step might be being in a small group with people, 10 years ahead of you in life that could give you some godly counsel or what have you. But man, we make time and financial allowance for things that we care about.
Yeah.
So, I would just challenge you, if God's stirring in your heart to take the step, start asking him, show me how, and follow that lead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Great.
So let's do this. before we talk about what we did this week that brought us joy. If you're on the journey with us and you feel like you need to make a declaration, I'm doing it, I'm going to make an appointment with this doctor, I'm going to join a small group. If you need to declare something, to say it, to put it in writing, to hold yourself accountable, text the words Life in Motion to 23101 and then follow those prompts. Let us know what you're doing. We would love to hear and celebrate you and cheer you on.
Yes.
You don't have to include your name, so it would be anonymous, but we would just be thrilled to know that you're going on the journey and for us to just thank God for your boldness and for your step.
Yeah.
Heather, what'd you do in the last week that's brought you or those around you joy?
I cleaned out my closet.
Oh, good for you. How did that go?
It was so good. I'm the kind of person that some chores, like there's things I like to do and do it by myself, but most of the time I prefer to do it with
community.
I do. I just get somebody in there to talk to and work through with. So a friend of mine came over and we cleaned out my closet and got rid of a whole big pile of things and made a shopping list of what's, lacking. What do I need to buy
to get rid of a lot of stuff?
I did get rid of a lot of stuff.
I cleaned my closet out
to
recently.
make a capsule wardrobe so that I can just mix and match some outfits.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be nice. I bought some jeans online recently and I found a big sale, a store that I kind of like, don't love, but kind of like. So I bought 5 pairs, all different styles, just thinking one of these is going to fit like a glove.
Yeah.
It turns out none of them do. So I had to return all of them. And I've decided I'm too old to wear jeans that are not perfectly comfortable. So I am on the hunt for a pair of jeans that if I have to wear them every single day of winter, fine. Don't mind.
Don't mind.
But
They're comfortable. They look good.
I'm going to need to be comfy at this age. So anyway, what I did in the last week, I will say probably, which is crazy, went to my follow-up appointment with my functional medicine doctor. So interesting because I'm in maintenance mode now because my labs are improving. She said I'll continue, without changing any of my protocol, I'll continue to see improvement because it's a slow, consistent process. We talked about my eating restrictions and she kind of loosened things up a bit, but I told her I've had a couple of times where I know that I ate something that's kind of on my forbidden list and I paid the price like up in the middle of the night with a terrible stomach ache or this cold sore that popped up after I had some preservatives. And she said, the good news is once your body's cleaned out, it can handle a little bit of going off your eating list and then it can cleanse itself pretty quickly again. So that's the good news. You're now in the stage of deciding, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, whatever I ate last week, not worth it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, now it's kind of playing with a few things. And she said, I wouldn't suggest you go crazy, your body. But she said, your body's so healthy now that like almost immediately you feel the discomfort. She said before you were so inflamed and so off the charts in every area that you felt bad all the time. So you couldn't tell when you had something that was hurting you. She's like, now you're more in tune. So good and bad.
Yeah. That is good news.
I mean, it's such good news. I called Brian and I go, the great news is I'm on maintenance mode and I can do what I want. The bad news is I want to keep doing what I've been doing, which is super restrictive. And he's like, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just a kind of a war of emotions, but a really good war of emotions that I now have freedom to do whatever. And in my freedom, I'm still going to choose right.
Yeah.
So
that's a really healthy place to be.
It's a healthy place to be. It felt kind of weird. Like I was leaving, thinking like, it's a little bit more challenging because it's all on me now. Like I was kind of like that blasted doctor, always making me healthy and everything. And now it's just on me and I'm ready to take it on.
Yeah. Good for you.
We think. Day 1, so far so good. So anyway, listen, we're joking, but we would love for you to do something this week that brings you and those around you joy. Joy's contagious, and I think joy is a picture of our Heavenly Father who we serve. We'd love for you to join us in doing something every week that brings you and those around you joy. And if you've enjoyed this week's episode, would you subscribe and maybe share it with a friend? Bring them along on the journey with us, and we'll see you next time.